Why do they always do YouTube before Twitter? See, this is the people I'm just gonna click these fucking links, and it's always fucking like literal 15-year-olds internet pranks that people are. Oh shit! Hang on, wait, it's Nocturne. Nocturne brings the nightmares, boys. Shroud of Darkness. The next time you summon an ally this round, give it +1/+0 and spell shield this round. So, you guys remember me talking about this elusive deck, right? You guys remember me talking about this elusive Shadow Isles combo deck that plays for just a distinct lack of uninteractability and just making really big Green Glade duos? Anyone remember that? I remember that. Looks fun. This looks great. I'm gonna slap this shit in there. Delish! Okay. Alright, hang on. I've gotta move. My fat head is blocking this Nocturne card. New keyword Nightfall. Yeah, it's the same keyword we know. Bonus if it's not the first card you play this round. Nocturne is a 4-mana 5/3, the Ash stat line. Nightfall, grant an enemy vulnerable and give all enemies -1 attack this round. Okay. Pretty vanilla so far. And you have to attack with 5 Nightfall enemies. Allies. Presumably they don't have to have triggered Nightfall, they just have to say Nightfall on them. That's, who knows? Other allies have Fearsome. But I missed it. When you play a unit, give enemies -1 attack this round. Alright. Unspeakable Horror. Unfortunately, the unspeakable horror here is my face. Let's go ahead and make that there we go. Much better. Alright, guys. Drain 1 from anything. Nightfall, create a random Nightfall card in hand. What? Oh. Whoa. So, it's sort of like a Vile Feast, but instead of making a 1/1 spider, it is Nightfall, and you get a random Nightfall card in hand. Worse Vile Feast? This one's quite interesting. This is not necessarily a worse Vile Feast. I think there could be some situations where you'd play this over Vile Feast. The ability to target the Nexus on is kind of nice here as well, so I could see there being benefits from this. This is definitely a card that's like a major consideration. Just begun. Alright. So yeah, overall, we're gonna have to kind of like break this down. Shroud of Darkness. Let's go ahead and stop this stupid meme with my camera. Shroud of Darkness is interesting. I think I might run it in the elusive deck I was talking about. I'm not really sure if I would want to run it in that deck. The fact that you're giving things spell shields before anything is happening, like you're giving spell shield, it's sort of like Key Guardian, right? Like compare this to Key Guardian, where the idea of spell shields, see the cards on Twitter? Yeah, let's get the cards on Twitter. The idea of spell shields is sort of like barrier for spells, and Shroud of Darkness is like Key Guardian for spell shield, because you're basically giving it to something in your hand, right? Now, the purpose of Shroud of Darkness is fairly plain, which is this idea of it's a Nightfall enabler, right? Because it's like a 1-mana burst that buffs the next thing you're about to play. So it kind of like combos with how the Nightfall ends up working, right? Because you just want something or to proc your Nightfall, and giving something spell shields can be pretty nice. Let's go ahead and get like the all-in-one visual here. So we've got all the cards here, and then we've also got this this new 2 cards that we haven't talked about yet, which is Risen Mist. Oh wait, this one's not Cosmics. That explains why it's so fast, because this is Legends of Runeterra. All right, it's all coming, guys. I just woke up. Okay, So, let's talk about these last two cards. Risen Mist, 4 mana, burst, speed, spell. Summon a Mist Wraith. That's quite interesting. So weird. It looks really bad. I think it's a bit better than it looks. Mist Wraiths can actually be pretty scary if you have a lot of them. I think this card is actually a lot more potential than it looks. I think the Mist Wraith package has been one of the sort of like more underrated package, but 4 is a little too much. So I'm not a huge fan of that. The ability to summon things at burst speed is like really, really, really powerful. It's so bad. This is like stronger than it looks. The fact that like you can use this before an open attack on like a mid or late game turn is like a big deal. Like, it's a burst unit, guys. Like, this card is pretty good. It's a lot better than it looks. When you look at it at first, you're like, well, it's a 4 mana Mist Wraith, and Mist Wraith is a 2 mana card that doesn't see play. But that's not really how we should be looking at this card. Like, not only does Mist Wraiths get better the more you have of them, and have been underrated in the past, but the ability to, like, burst into an attack is actually a really powerful thing that we haven't really seen yet. Stalking Shadows, burst, pick a follower from the top 4 cards in your deck, draw it, shuffle the rest into deck, then create an ephemeral copy in hand. Huh. What? So basically we're just playing more duos, right? Basically we're just playing more Greenglade duos. So I have a deck with like fucking like 9 Greenglade duos in it. Alright, I mean I'm definitely playing this on day 1. I'm literally definitely playing this on day 1 of the expansion. I'm just doing Shadow Isles, Elusives, and just like playing an infinite amount of Greenglade duos. Just draw Cursed Keeper, easy. Yeah, that's pretty good too. Like, and this is so dumb. Like, the amount of elusive stats we're gonna have off of Stalking Shadows and off of Encroaching Shadows. Like, what the hell? That's gonna be a little gross. That being said, I mean, I can see it. I don't know. Stalking Shadows looks kind of good, dude. This. Oh man, how else can we use this card? 2 mana burst to draw 2. Yeah, it's kind of a 2 mana burst draw 2. One of them is ephemeral, but it's a semi-tutor. This is like a good card. It can only draw units. It can only draw followers, and it looks at the top 4 cards in your deck, right? Here's the thing. Because it says pick a follower from the top 4 cards in your deck, there's gonna be a lot of like draws where you'll have like spells and champions on top of your deck, right? To the point where you won't really have that selection. Like if the top 4 cards in your deck is like spell, champ, follower, you're just gonna get a random one, the follower that you can choose. And if it's like spell, champ, you're gonna whiff. You're gonna get nothing because there's no followers in the top 4 cards of your deck. So that's something that's really important to realize. Which, it's not like a bad card because of that, but it is a downside that will happen sometimes, right? I think it's a great combo piece. I love to see this kind of thing in the game. This is effectively a card that increases like reliability of combo pieces. And I think that's something Runeterra has needed more of for a while. Although, this one might be a little degenerate. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to use this. This card is definitely immediately useful though. I would say, right away, I'm very happy calling these cards pretty solid. So immediately, let's go ahead and are these all that there is today? Do they? Yeah. These are all that they're showing today, right? Okay. So let's go ahead and start from the top. Shroud of Darkness. Shroud of Darkness, like I said, it's kind of like Key Guardian. I'm gonna probably call this a Heimerdinger at first. I don't love the idea of giving a unit spell shield in your hand proactively. It's gonna have the same exact downside as Key Guardian in general, where people just like won't really, you know, they won't really have to deal with it that round usually. But it is a Nightfall trigger. I don't think that, as far as we've seen, the Nightfall deck is like enough value to like go out of your way for Nightfall trigger. And the thing is, when you're looking for the Nightfall trigger, you're much better off playing, I think, Fading Memories as well. So Shroud of Darkness is alright, but it's just like probably not enough value for an entire card. Nocturne is hard to level up. Yeah, Nocturne is going to be hard to level up. So Shroud of Darkness is unique. It definitely has potential. I'm very happy calling it a Heimerdinger, but we'll talk with others later and see if we end up bumping it a little bit above that. A lot of you guys are saying it's actually already a bit higher than that. We'll see. Risen Mist as well. Big potential card. Big potential card. This one kind of also has to be Heimerdinger because there's just like... I don't know if I can rate it above that. It has to specifically be ran in a Mist Wraith deck, I think, and that's really narrow. But I can't call it a bad card. I think it's actually a lot better than it immediately seems. It looks bad at first. Stalking Shadows is already a good card on the level. I'm pretty happy calling Stalking Shadows a swoon emote. I think Stalking Shadows is quite good, and it seems to have a ton of potential. I need to think more about like all the different combos to rate this in. But this is a very good card overall. It's like it's a pretty great card, and it'll be able to find a lot of combo decks. Nocturne's Unspeakable Horror, and yeah, this is Unspeakable Horror. This is like the one drain, and then you get like the Nightfall, create a random Nightfall card in your hands. We don't know the entire list of Nightfall cards. This one's all right. The big question is like comparing this to Vile Feast. Basically, would you rather have like the 0 mana 1/1 immediately on the board, or would you rather sometimes have a random Nightfall card in hand? From what we've seen so far, so when something says create a random Nightfall card, it doesn't include champions. So from what we've seen so far, that would mean it can create a Doom Beast, it can create a Stygian owl thing, or it can create a Pony Boy, and those are all pretty terrible from what we've seen. It can create itself too. Yeah, it can create another Unspeakable Horror. That's kind of cute. Yeah, because that's also Nightfall. Okay. Is there anything else it can actually create? Why wouldn't it include champs? The reason is there's another card or two in the game that already do this. I can't remember exactly what they are. Is it the random elite that doesn't create Garen? But things that don't specifically say they can create champs can't create champs. Even though it's just kind of implied. It doesn't say in the text, but this wording basically says it can't create champs. Yeah, it's like Silverwing Lancer not being able to get, random elite from Swiftwing can't create Garen. Exactly. So by that logic, we should assume it can't create champs unless stated otherwise. Okay, so, I don't know, Unspeakable Horror, the ability to draw a card should be better than Vile Feast's little payoff. The only problem is that will only happen whenever you're actually triggering the Nightfall on Unspeakable Horror, which is not necessarily going to happen super often. And also, the Unspeakable Horror itself, like, we don't know how many good Nightfall cards there's going to be. I will say, I think I'm pretty happy calling this a swoon. I think that even in a case where, like, it ends up being a little bit underwhelming at first, if the Nightfall cards, like, if there's ever... It seems, from what I've seen, there's only, like, 4 Nightfall cards this can even take. If they add the pool of Nightfall cards, like, a little bit better, this can very easily and arguably be something like a Lux. No way it's a swoon. Too high. Vlad IMO. I mean, it just comes down to, like, how often you're triggering this effect. So, I like this at a swoon, actually. And there's a very, very specific reason for it, because I think it's matchup flexible. And I think that's an insanely valuable thing to have. The concept of matchup flexibility. I think Vile Feast is, by comparison, Vile Feast is a card that might have higher average value, but it double commits to a single matchup table, and that's, I think, a really, really fundamental weakness of Vile Feast. There's a lot of metas where Vile Feast ends up being cut, and there's a lot of matchups where it's completely useless because of that. Whereas, like, if you're against an aggro deck and you hit a 1 mana, like an early drain 1 on something, the ability for you to, like, also summon a spider is kind of often overkill at that point, and you'd rather just have the flexibility of other matchups being able to represent, like, a decent alternative draw to that and get, like, additional value. You might trade the spider just to be able to go face. What do you mean with that exactly? The fact that you can target the Nexus is a bonus too. That will matter sometimes as well. Like, actually. And whenever that does matter, it can absolutely affect the game, right? Can control likes this card. I'm very happy calling this card a swoon. I know it looks kind of bad. I think that obviously we haven't seen all the Nightfall cards yet. The Nightfall cards we have seen have been a little underwhelming, but the fact that it's a matchup flexible Vile Feast I think is very valuable. So I'm very, very happy with this card. And again, evaluating this one's hard because it just depends on the Nightfall pool. Alright, Nocturne. The man himself. 4 mana, 5/3, Fearsome. What are we gonna do with you, Nocturne? You've attacked with 5 Nightfall allies. 5 Nightfall allies. And then... So it's very similar to Ash, right? This is like, it's basically trying to be Ash. Where it's got the same exact stat line. It even has a... okay, it's a pretty different level up condition, but it's kind of the same build around concept. And its level up has a finisher that makes opponents kind of unable to block so that you can win the game. It's basically like Ash. The question is it really going to be able to have that payoff with this archetype? I mean, Ash is pretty competitive. She's a little niche, but we currently are in an Ash meta right now, so that's fine. The question is, like, is that actually going to be worth it? The play effect is a lot weaker. The fact that you don't get the free Frostbite on attacks is awkward. And it feels like it has less of just an auto end the game. It feels worse than Ash overall. And it feels like it might be a little awkward to be played. But I don't hate this card. I don't think it's awful. I'm pretty happy rating it. I'm between a This Is Fine Yasuo and a Vlad right now. I think I'll call it a Vlad. I think I'm very happy calling this card a Vlad. I could actually see it getting higher with more Fearsomes. I think the idea of like a Fearsome finisher is actually potentially a little scary. 5 Nightfall enemies. Level up. Other allies have Fearsome. Play a unit, give enemies -1 attack. All you have to do is attack with 5 Nightfall allies. It levels up in deck the same as Ash does. It's a Fearsome finisher that allows your Fearsomes to become elusives. And all you have to do is play 2 units and the opponents aren't going to be able to block. 2 units and the opponents aren't able to block. I think this card is actually underrated. Wow. I think it's a Vlad right now. I think it's going to get good fast. I think there's a chance this card will launch and it'll be a sleeper for like a month until someone makes a good deck with it. Or maybe it just needs a couple of support cards. Like when Diana comes out or something. I feel like this card, like... The idea of like an all-in Fearsome deck, I think, is actually a lot scarier and close than people give it credit for. Whew. Oh, man. Like, I'll give it... I almost want to give this a swoon. It's kind of looking better the more I look at it. It's more about future potential. I don't know if it has all the cards it needs to exist right now. Like, here's the problem with Nocturne. The problem with Nocturne is we know Targon's going to have some Nightfall cards, but it seems likely that some of them are going to come when Diana comes, which is going to be, like, later on, I think. So we might not have, like, the full set for Nocturne yet. I think when we do, this card can get very good very fast. I'll call it a Vlad for now, but man, I think I think this card will someday fairly soon make some waves for sure. All right, that's my initial impressions. As always, you know, I'll do the pinned comment on the YouTube video update. So that's gonna be updated impressions, and I'm gonna tweet out my like kind of final impressions at the end of the day. But these are like kind of where I'm at so far. Overall, these cards are all pretty competitive. Like, this is not like the last few days where we've seen a lot of duds. These cards all feel like they have a lot of competitive viability. The one I'm like, kind of like most looking forward to is Stalking Shadows. I think this card is maybe straight up unfair. Looks really crazy. I'm going to be running it for sure. This is a really dumb card. Perfect.